Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 914 TFT tier list. So as always, if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch. I do stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. I usually play at least 1 or 2 games of TFT at the end of the stream. If we get a large enough audience for TFT, then I might stream some more of it. So just show some love over there if you're interested, and check out a couple of games and say hey. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Now, I did release a patch notes video that was separate a few days ago, so be sure to check that out. I wanted to come up with this tier list a little bit faster, but I had a lot of family stuff going on this week and professional stuff. So, anyways, here it is now. Hopefully this will help you out decipher the meta. Remember that they are going to release a patch for TFT, or they're saying they're going to release a patch every single week, so be sure to come back. I'll try to have the patch notes for you on the Tuesday or the Wednesday they release it, and then I'll have a new tier list when that comes out as well. So tons and tons of content for this. So be sure to check that out. And I am also going to do a top 5 comps video as well that I'll probably release later today in addition to this. So be sure to check this out. Remember that the tier lists are always a little weird for this because certain champions are really good in certain contexts, but really like not good in other contexts, right? And so a lot of TFT and a lot of what makes it interesting is a lot of stuff is very contextual. You know, it just depends on which champions you get, which champions the enemy has, which items you get are also really important. So the way that I try to rank these champions are tier 1 are champions that you're going to see all the time in winning comps. And usually they're going to be in multiple winning comps. And usually they're going to be one of the major reasons why that comp wins. So it usually has to have those 3 factors in it. Very powerful, sort of independently, versatile. And not only versatile in terms of comp, but in terms of items. Like you can really just throw these champs into almost any comp and it'll probably be relevant, especially in the top tier comps. Tier 2 are usually champs that meet like 2 of those criteria, but maybe not all 3. They might be a little more niche. So they might be like in like one comp, like really strong in one specific comp that's powerful, or maybe they're in a couple of powerful comps, but they're not the centerpiece. You know, the comp can kind of function a little bit with the substitute for a while until you find that champ. So usually they're still going to be fairly versatile and pretty important in the comps, but not as important as the tier 1s. The tier 3 are usually champs that are either very hard to get or you don't see them in a lot of compositions. So they could still be very strong. It's just they might be very situational. They might require very specific items or specific setups. They might be parts of some of the comps that aren't quite as popular, like Assassins just got nerfed a lot on this patch. Tier 4 and Tier 5, I mean, I thought about just lumping these into one. They're both, like, very situational. Like, you really don't want to be running these champs, like, unless you are going for a very specific comp, and usually they're not that important in most of the comps, unless you maybe load them up with items and they get to gold rank or something. They're probably not going to be as important, but you will still see them sometimes. Okay, let's go ahead and get here. And as always, you can find timestamps in the description if you don't have time to watch the whole video as well. And don't forget that if this video is a little too long for you, you can always click on that cog in YouTube and turn it up to 1.25 speed or even 1.5 speed, and that'll, you know, cut the time down dramatically if you can still understand what I'm saying, which I'm from the South. I speak fairly slowly. You can probably still understand what I'm saying. But anyways, just a little bonus tip out there for those of you that might think the video is a bit too long. Okay, but I do like to be thorough, so I'm always going to be thorough first and then try to worry about time later. All right, let's talk about Kennen first. This champ is just really, really OP. They did nerf him on this patch a little bit. They nerfed, like, I think they nerfed his attack speed or his attack damage, one of the two. It wasn't enough. So the thing with Kennen is he, let me find him on here real quick. He fits into so many different comps. He has 3 different traits to him: Elementalist, Yordle, and Ninja, all of which are very relevant. Now, Ninja Assassins did get nerfed out. People are still going to try it. It can still work, but that's one comp where he kind of fell off a little bit. But he's just so strong in other circumstances that he's going to stay. So, first of all, Yordles are one of the strongest comps out there right now, and he is one of the centerpieces of Yordles. He's a big chunk of the damage for Yordles. Kennen and Gnar, which we'll talk about Gnar. He's number 2 in there, but those are really kind of the workhorses of that comp. Like Poppy is important, Lulu is important as well, but the Kennen is what will be most competitive because he's also an Elementalist, and Elementalists are still some of the strongest champions out there. I mean, the Golem with 2200 health is the equivalent health of like a lot of 3-star units. Does 100 attack damage, so it's just crazy that you get an extra champ that's that big. He usually, if you sets your comp up correctly, he's going to spawn on the front line and just soak all of that damage. That's like enough damage for 2 champions. So it's, I don't know what his armor or Daisy's armor and magic resist are, but it just takes forever to kill that thing, and it just allows the rest of your comp to get to work. And then he's just independently powerful as well. I mean, if you get to he's only 3-star, so you can usually pick him up fairly early. And if you can get to a tier 3 Kennen, that's a lot of damage. That's 560 damage. I'm pretty sure for each champion, it's a total possible of 560 damage if they stand in it for the full 3 seconds. And it can stun them for 1.5 seconds after 3 hits. So just a tremendous amount of damage for a champion that has that much versatility. You know, he's ranged. It's only 2 ranged, but he's still ranged. He has these 3 traits, which are all relevant. Because he's a ninja, he also does 40% more damage when he's standalone out there. You know, so just his base attack damage is going to be really high. It's going to be like, I don't know, 80 or something, 80 or 90 attack damage. So he's just tremendous. He's good at auto-attacking. He's got the AoE stun. He does a lot of AoE damage. He can fit into a lot of comps. You can just put him in early if you need to, even if you don't have a great comp for him yet, when you're still trying to figure out stuff. Fits into anything that's going to go Elementalist. So Brawler Elementalist was really popular last patch. You still have Glacial Elementalists. A lot of people just try to splash Elementalists into almost anything. Like Demons usually try to run Elementalist because they've got Brand already in there. Almost anything outside of probably Gunslingers will probably try to run Elementalist at some point if they get the option to, because it's just so easy to splash in. Just requires 3 champions, and 2 of them are very, very good, the Kennen and the Brand, and the other one's a 2-star champ that's really easy to fit in. Although she's not that good, she can definitely give you Daisy. So, and because he's Elementalist, he charges his ult twice as fast. So yeah, he has 50 mana, but every time he auto attacks, he's gaining double the mana off of that. So he ends up getting to his ult fairly quickly. So super strong champion, does a ton of damage, scales really well with AP. Really, really good in a bunch of comps. So I think, you know, you're going to see Kennen a lot. He's highly contested. Okay, Gnar is the next one. Now, Gnar he's been nerfed a few times now. So he's not as strong as he was, like, in sort of, I guess, what you'd call the preseason. It's all called the beta, so it's sort of confusing. But I guess, like, right when he got released to live, he was a bit stronger. But Wilds did get buffed a lot on this patch. They got an extra 10% attack speed buff, which I think Wilds is a top 5 comp right now. I've done pretty well with it. I've seen some other people do well with it. Now, the changes to attack speed to where it stacks multiplicatively instead of additively, which I talked about in the patch notes, so be sure to check those out. But that did actually hurt Wilds quite a bit. I didn't think about that, but because they stacked that attack speed, it's going to be a lot less effective. So that's partially why Wilds was not really that great on the previous patch when they made that change. But they did give it 10% more attack speed on this one. They did buff Ahri specifically, who was one of the weaker champs in Wilds. And they buff Sorcerers, which is the win condition for Wilds. It's usually Aurelion Soul. You can go a different direction if you want to, but it's usually Aurelion Soul, Lulu, and Ahri are your Sorcerers there. So there's 3 different buffs to that comp that he's good in, which is Wild Dragons. And that's because he's got the Shapeshifter trait. But he's also good in Yordles. As you can see, like I mentioned before, Yordles is a top-tier comp. And he's usually one of the centerpieces behind it. He's the person that gives you backline access. He's the person that can maybe kind of deal with that Draven that's just like destroying your team on the backline. It's still going to be tough to deal with something like that if they have a rapid-fire cannon plus Draven. But he's the person who can like jump to the backline and knock that Draven forward sometimes to make him to where he's going to sit in like a Kennen ult or something like that. So very good there. So he has a lot of traits that are good. He's got Wild, he's got Shapeshifters, and he's got Yordles, all of which are very relevant right now. And then he's ranged, kind of like Kennen. He has decent armor, pretty decent health. They have nerfed it recently. He's not, they did nerf his mana, I believe, to make it 125 instead of 100. And remember, he's not a sorcerer, and he's really not that great when he's not transformed. So he can be kind of weak to demons because it takes a while for him to charge up. And if they ever hit him and drain his mana, it's pretty much lights out. So he definitely does have some weaknesses, but because he's ranged, usually you can have a front line soaking up those demon shots early and eventually get him to transform. So I think overall he's still going to be very strong. And then once he transforms, of course, it's off to the races. He can just kill almost anybody. He gets a ton of extra health. He's going to get a lot of healing off of shapeshifters. You know, stuns everybody for 2 seconds and knocks them back into your team. So, really powerful champion. Has 3 traits that are all pretty good. He is tier 4, so it is harder to find him than Kennen. That's why I bumped him down just a little bit. And he is very heavily contested because, you know, like I said, 2 of the biggest comps right now, well, one of the biggest is Yordles. But I think that Wilds will probably make a comeback as well. There are some people that try to fit him in with, I guess you could try to fit him in with demons or something because he does have the shapeshifter, but shapeshifter's got nerfed, so it's really like shapeshifter's just kind of like a cherry on top if you get him, but it's not something that you specifically try to go for. But usually if you get shapeshifters, it's going to be wild dragons because you're already going to have the Nidalee and you have the Gnar. That's 2 wilds. You might as well throw in Ahri and Warwick. So, anyways, going to be a strong champ, pretty heavily contested. And then we have Draven. Now, Draven is one of the strongest standalone hard carries in the game. I'm sure everyone's seen the Draven. You load him up with items. He's probably the most OP thing in the game if you get 3 items on him, especially like Rapid Fire plus some sort of healing item, usually Bloodthirster. Like Rapid Fire, Bloodthirster, and then whatever else you want to put on him to make him strong. Just because he healed, just like in traditional League of Legends, he does heal for a ton off of Bloodthirster because the extra damage that you do on him counts as lifesteal. So the extra damage can't crit, but it does count as lifesteal, the bonus damage on him here. It's almost like reading a novel to read his ult, but it's basically how he functions in the game. So at like tier 2, he's going to get 200 bonus on-hit physical damage and 200% attack speed because it can stack twice. So that's pretty nutty, especially like with Rapid Fire Cannon. He stacks twice. It gives him extra range so he can stand still on that back line. Doesn't have to move, which means he's going to catch all of his axes, and it allows you to hit Yordles because they can't dodge. So if you get Rapid Fire Cannon, if you have the ability to get a Rapid Fire Cannon, you know, Draven should definitely be something in the back of your mind that you're thinking about if you can get that early. So, anyways, just puts out a ton of damage. Doesn't really care about demons as long as he starts catching those axes. Doesn't matter. So he's kind of immune to demons, which is pretty nice. And yeah, just deletes people. Just does a tremendous amount of damage. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. The comps that he's in are kind of weird. I think the most common thing you'd see him in is like a Plan B and Gunslingers. So usually, because you're going to have GP, so with Gunslingers, the traditional Gunslinger comp's going to be like Tristana, Lucian, GP, and one other one that I'm not thinking of off, Graves. Right, and so that's only 4 champions to make that comp, and then oftentimes you'll throw in like a Shin and a Draven, and then that'll give you Blade Masters and Gunslingers. The problem with that, and I have seen that build work really well, but Draven really wants items. Like, he needs items to scale. He doesn't have any CC, so he just is a huge damage, you know, workhorse. But the thing is, with Gunslingers, you also want to put a lot of items on like Lucian and maybe Tristana. But it does open up, if you're not getting a lot of the on-hit items, if you're getting like a lot of BF swords or whatever, then he can be really good because obviously anything that's, I guess he doesn't really scale with attack damage in here, does he? Basic attack does 100% bonus on-hit physical damage. Yeah, it is. It's 100% of his bonus attack damage, yeah. So the more BF swords that you have, the better. He's going to hit a lot harder with his passive, so... You know, that's why stuff like Bloodthirster, I guess you could put like a Zeke's on him or something on the back line. I guess I could pull up the items over here at the top of my head. You could throw like an Infinity Edge on him if you wanted to, a GA, Sword of the Divine. You don't see those that much, but if you're just getting like a lot of BF sword items with your Gunslingers, you're not getting your on-hit stuff, you're not finding Hush, you're not finding... you know, Swordbreaker, that kind of stuff, then you can throw, you know, like Bloodthirster specifically on him, PD, Phantom Dancer. It's just kind of a nice plan B, like I said, in that build. And there are a couple other builds out there I think that you would try to put him in. I've seen people do more Blade Masters. It's kind of hard to get all of the Blade Masters. But you can splash him in into Gunslingers because you already have GP. So I think that's the best. You could also see him in Demons because you have Aatrox, who's pretty good, which we'll talk about a bit later in the demon comp. So if you have Aatrox and then something like Shin, then Draven can fit in with demons. Because demons, I guess Varus is like a pretty hard carry. Aatrox is a hard carry. I mean, you got a lot of carries in demons, I guess. You got Brand, you got Morg. Demons are pretty OP right now. But, so not as versatile. You're not going to see him like absolutely in as many comps as Kennen or Gnar, but he is situational. If you do get the rapid fire cannon, he's probably the best rapid fire user in the game. If you have like a BT setup, Bloodthirster, he's one of the only champs that uses that really well right now, other than like maybe Volibear situationally, because he heals a lot with his on-hit lightning bounces. So you will see him. He is powerful if he does work. He does have the Blade Master trait, which I think is one of the more common ones. But then also if you have like a Darius, like a tier 2 Darius laying around from earlier, and you just have room for like Darius Draven in a comp, or late game if you get a Swain for your demon comp or whatever, then that can also give you the chance for Imperials. Now usually you don't have 4 Imperials because Katarina is kind of bad. Unless she gets a lot of items, and you want to put a lot of items on Draven. So, Cat's kind of bad, but it does give 100% extra damage. But it's pretty easy to splash in Swain or Darius and just cross your fingers and hope that the Draven gets the buff 50% of the time. So, anyways, Draven, very strong, a little more situational because he's not going to be in every comp, but there are a couple of comps where he is a good sort of secondary option that you just kind of splash in there, just because it takes, you know, just usually a couple of extra champions. It's Draven plus one more and a lot of comps to fit him in if you have the items for him. Once again, he's pretty bad if you don't have the perfect items for him. But he's great. And he's the hardest counter to Yordles also. Draven with Rapid Fire Cannon, because you can stay on the back line. They're not going to be able to get to you with like Kennen as easily, and you're just going to start melting people. And there's nothing really they can do about it if you protect him on the back line. Okay. Morgana is another one. Now, Morg could potentially be up higher than this. You know, it's possible I could put her up as high, like maybe before Draven or around Gnar's level or something, because she is seeing a lot more play. Sorcerers specifically did get buffed on this patch. Demons have been nerfed, but they're still good. I heard someone misspeak on, it was a very popular streamer. I'm not going to say who it was, but remember, you got to keep up with the times here. Someone did mention that, you know, the tier 2 demons, he was saying, oh, I want to keep this because it's got the 40% burn. He was wanting to splash demons in. It's not true anymore. Remember, that got nerfed on the patch, right? So demons only do 25% chance to burn for 2 demons. Now, 4 demons is a lot more doable, because that's 50% and it used to be 60% burn. So 4 demons is kind of where you want to be, I think, with most demon comps. Once again, I'm going to make a whole video about the demons here in a little bit. But 4 demons, you get the good stuff, and you get to knock out a lot of the bad stuff. So with 4 demons, you could go like Varus, Brand, Aatrox, and Morgana. And those are probably the 4 most common, best ones you can get. Now, you can also get Swain, but he's tier 5. He's a good champion, but you can't always count on getting Swain. Yeah, lots of good stuff. So she fits in with demons, largely regarded as one of the strongest, if not the strongest comp right now. And she also fits into the Yordle comp, which is also one of the strongest, if not the strongest comps right now. So she fits into a lot of comps. You might say, well, why does she fit into Yordles? She's just the sorcerer of choice to complement the other sorcerers in that build. So you have Lulu, I know, is one of the sorcerers. I haven't played Yordles a ton. And Veigar, there we go. So it's just the person that you put in with Lulu and Veigar. And I think a lot of that's because it just gives you a lot of extra CC. That's something that Yordles don't have a ton of. You've got the Kennen and you've got the Morg, which are like AoE CC. And then you have the Gnar, who rolls up. And Lulu helps you out, and Poppy. I mean, I guess they have a pretty good chunk of CC in there, but she's just the person of choice to throw in. It also gives you an ability to splash one more demon, like really late game. Now, Yordles this would be a 7 build if you have Morg. She's pretty good while you're waiting on other Yordles too. Like, you can have some demons in there early, like have Brand in there early if you want to go like Yordle Elementalist later. You can have Brand and Morgana in there in the mid game while you're still looking for Gnar or whatever. So she's just kind of a nice transitional piece, and you can keep her in there if you want to go like Yordle demons later, or if you want to go just pure demons with something else later. In theory, you could splash her into things like wilds, like wild dragons. Usually people do Lulu for the last the last mage, but you could also do Morgana. I think that could work. I mean, she just fits into almost anything. Like, she does a ton of damage. If you actually look at how much damage she does, a tier 2 for a tier 3, or a rank 2 for a tier 3 champion, it's pretty nutty. Like, if she gets both of these chains on people, it's 750 damage each. So, that's quite a lot. And it stuns them for 4 seconds. They get charmed with that. So, that's pretty nutty. You know, even if you only hit 2 people, that's still 1,500 damage. So, that's a heck of a lot of damage. That's like 50% more damage than Kennen. Now, you might say, well, why not Kennen over her? The thing is, Kennen's ult, I think, is a bit more reliable, and he can run with it. So, he can reposition and stun more people with it. So, she's still great, though. And she doesn't fit into quite as many. I mean, she does fit into a lot of comps as Kennen, but I think Kennen's just slightly better, but she's still good. I mean, they're both tier 1. 4-second stun. It says 3 hexes away, but I swear sometimes it doesn't chain people that it should. 3 hexes is like half the map. So it does get a lot of people, but that's like the same length as Cho, and I feel like that doesn't happen all the time. There is a delay on it also, so, you know, if she dies within 3 seconds, that can be kind of rough, so you want to make sure you have a good front line for her. But she is Sorcerer. They did just get buffed, you know, 40 extra AP for 3 Sorcerers, which usually you don't get to 6 Sorcerers, so that's really nice, but 3 is pretty easy to get to in a lot of comps. And that means that she does channel up her magic as fast, so just like I was talking about with Kennen, you know, he's Elementalist, they have a similar thing. You channel your mana twice as fast. So, yeah, she has 150 mana, but it's basically 75 mana based on her auto attacks. Although, she has a fairly slow auto attack speed, so it can take a little while to charge this up. But now, I don't know exactly if you want to load her up with items. I think she's more of kind of a support player. You probably can. I mean, she has a hell of a lot of base damage, so maybe you could load her up with like a Ludens or something, although you don't typically see it that much, or like maybe a Morellonomicon. But she could be a decent option if you get a level 2 early and you're just not finding the other carries that you need. She can be good. But she's just really strong. She's just a really good role player. She's kind of like Cho, but I think she fits into a couple more comps more comfortably than Cho and like has more synergies. Although Cho is extremely good too. We'll talk about him here in a second. But just basically synergy with a couple of the top comps. Very splashable into a lot of comps. Does a lot of damage. Has a lot of CC. Just a really good champion. You're going to be seeing a lot in this meta. And then finally we have Volibear. Now I did bring Volibear down a little bit. I have tried, you know, that was the comp that really got me from probably like low bronze up to platinum in like 3 days. Was I was spamming Volibear comps. And I was doing Void Brawler Assassins. Now, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not that hard to get to. It was basically Kha'Zix, Cho, Rek'Sai, Kha'Zix, Cho, Rek'Sai, and then Volibear, Warwick, one other brawler somewhere in there, and then Akali and either Rengar or Eve for the splash at the end. And it was working really well. I don't know, maybe it's still good. They did nerf Assassins, like a pretty good chunk in there. I have tried some other builds as well. Now, Assassins I think they were pretty nice because that would allow you to get on backline stuff like Draven or Varus or Tristana. I think it was pretty good against gunslingers, sort of. But Volibear, like, did get nerfed a couple of times. And the 0.1 attack speed off of his attacks is actually very significant. Snelly only has a 0.55 attack speed, which means he scales really poorly with attack speed items. And typically, like, the kinds of items you want to put on him don't even give him that much attack speed. So, like, you can put a lot of different items on him. But, like, usually some of the best items are going to be, like, red buff, disarm, like sword breaker, hush, you know, just a lot of the on-hit stuff. You could even do Curse Blade. They did nerf Curse Blade a little bit. So he really didn't get that many attack speed items outside of, I guess Curse Blade did give him some attack speed, and you could go Phantom Dancer on him. Rapid, I forgot, a lot of people would put Rapid Fire Cannon on him if you get the choice as well, so. But you can't always find Rapid Fire, and it's really hard to find Rapid Fire. And that's one thing that I liked about that build is it didn't really rely super heavily on getting a Rapid Fire Cannon. Although it certainly was nice. But anyways, he did get some nerfs. I think they dropped his base armor. He used to have like 35 or 40. Dropped his attack speed to 0.55. He still has only 75 mana to activate, though. He has pretty good starting health. They may have nerfed his health as well. But, yeah, it does quite a bit of damage. But the main thing is the on-hit stuff is really good, although they have nerfed that a little bit, and they nerfed his attack speed, which is indirectly a pretty big nerf to on-hit. So, yeah, it doesn't feel like much going from 0.65 to 0.55, but it actually is quite a bit. I mean, it's 17% less, right? It's basically like 1/6 less, a little bit more than 1/6. So it's probably between 17% and like 19% loss. However, still going to be a strong comp, you know, I think overall, because it's just like, I don't know if he's going to be your hard carry. The thing is, Akali got nerfed in that comp too, and she was the other really hard carry. But I don't know. I'll have to test it out some more. I did play it a couple times. It did not feel good, but it may have just been a couple of bad draws. But he does still fit into a couple of comps. So obviously anything with brawlers still going to be strong. You can still go like brawler elementalist and just use like Brand as your carry and Kennen. And that can potentially be very strong. Glacials is still something that a lot of people sleep on. Glacial elementalist can still be great. It's got a ton of CC. You know, you just have something like Volibear, Lissandra, Sejuani, Ashe, and then you can throw in Varus into that build, and then that gives you the demon bonus with Brand, and that also gives you the ranger bonus with Ashe, so you have 2 people attacking on the back line. You're going to need a lot of items for that. I think Ashe is very good, but it's like, I don't know if she does quite enough damage to justify like dumping all of your items on her, although Varus does justify that. So pretty versatile, you know. He can go with brawlers, he can go with glacials. He still is like one of the premier users of on hit, even though his attack speed got slowed. So if you find yourself early game, you know, getting a bunch of components for like Hush, Swordbreaker, just a bunch of Negatron cloaks, basically, you might still think about Volibear. The only other comp that, you know, probably has better on hit stuff are gunslingers. So the thing is, the Negatron cloak items, let me pull this over here. Negatron cloak items are really like not that great on with most other comps. Like I had a game yesterday where we got like almost literally like 5 Negatron cloaks, and I was just sitting there. I was trying like demons or something, and I was like, why didn't I just go gunslingers or a Volibear comp? Because like all of these items just feel like they're so bad if they're not on hit, or most of them do. You know, like Curseblade did get nerfed, but still pretty good with gunslingers, still good with volley. Then you have Hush and Swordbreaker. Now, Ionic Spark can be good. Again, like that's a very good counter to gunslingers because like Tristana has a really low cooldown on her ult, and then of course Lucian has a low cooldown on his ult. So Lucian will just kill himself dashing around if you have an Ionic Spark. So Negatron Cloak can be good, but it's either very situational with like Ionic Spark and Dragon's Claw, or it's for on hit. So anyways, if you're getting a bunch of like Negatron Cloaks, then he's still going to be one of the premier users for that. And it's still a versatile build. So, goes in a bunch of comps. He's not going to be as much of a hard carry as he used to be, although he can still be pretty good. So, I think he still deserves the number 1, or like, to be in the top 5, even though he has been nerfed out a little bit. Okay. Next tier of champs. And some of these champs are still going to be very strong. Like, you could definitely make a case for putting Brand, Show, Aatrox, and Akali up in tier 1. But with my list, I like to keep it very clean for tier 1 and tier 2 and just say, look, these are the top 5, and then these are the top 10 in tier 2, and that's it. Because, like, I feel like a tier list doesn't have much meaning if you have, like, 10 or 15 champs in tier 1. You know, people want to know what's the best of the best. And then tier 2, similarly, I just want to know, like, what's just a step down. And then tier 3 and tier 4, just, like, there's no limit on that. I just throw stuff in there, depending on where I think it is. But tier 1 and tier 2, I try to always keep every patch top 5, top 10 after that, so a total of top 15, just for consistency, even though it is a tough call on some of these. Like I said, these top 4, maybe even 5, also a lot of people might consider tier 1. Like, you could definitely make arguments for them, but I'm going to make arguments for why I think they are very good, but not quite as good as some of these other champs. Okay, Brand is someone that I've had my eye on since day 1. I've always said Elementalist, OP, Brand, really OP. If you watch my old tier list, he was, you know, he's almost always one of the top tier champs. So I do think that he is really good. They did nerf out Assassins, which were one of the major things that were like kind of decent against Elementalists because you could jump past Daisy and kill the squishy backline stuff like Brand. But Assassins did get nerfed really hard. Brand didn't get touched for some reason. And he's still going to be really good for a lot of the reasons that I said in the past. You know, Elementalist extremely powerful. Daisy is OP. She just tanks everything. She's got the health of like 2 champions and change. Just really, really good, especially for kind of squishier comps that don't have a great front line, like demons. Do not have an amazing tank in their lineup. You've got Aatrox, but you know you don't want to be loading him up with tank items usually. So having that Daisy just come up there and bail you out, even though you're not running tanks, just allows you to run a massive amount of damage and get away with it. So I still think Elementalists are probably the most overpowered class on this patch. And the other one that people could consider overpowered is Demon, and he's also a Demon. So he slots in very well with a top-tier build with Demons. And Demons have a lot of good stuff, like we mentioned before. You got the Aatrox, you got the Moore, you got the Varus, Swain late game. A lot of really good company there. And then by himself, he's independently really powerful. I mean, this ultimate at tier 2, and you get it as 1,200 damage that you pop out there. Now, there are other champions, like we've seen. Morgana, if she hits 2 people and sticks them with a chain, that's even more. That's 1,500 damage. So Morg technically is a tier 3 champion, does more than Brand, which is why I have Morg out there. Now, Brand is a lot easier to use because he doesn't have to survive for 3 seconds while he's ulting. He can get his ult off right before he's about to die and still be very effective in a fight. He has more range than she does. He has 3 attack range, so it's going to be easier for him to charge up. And, you know, he can do this from a distance and hit a ton of people. You know, he's pretty much... The thing about Brand is it's like almost guaranteed you're going to do the full 1,200 damage because it can bounce between 2 people back and forth, and it can happen at a really long distance. So I think that makes Brand similar to Morg, even though in like the best case scenarios for Morg, she's going to put out more damage. Although, to be honest, chaining 2 people, it doesn't require that much more best case scenario. But he is going to be a little bit more consistent. One of the major nerfs they did make to Brand is either last patch or a couple of patches ago was they bumped his mana up to 125, which is fair, but it used to be 50, like 100, and it was really 50 because he's Elementalist. It would charge twice as fast, so that made him really, really good with things like Shojin, which he's still pretty good with Shojin. All of the Sorcerers and Elementalists are because they stack their mana up so fast. But his attack speed is lowered. You know, it's 0.6, so it does take him a while to charge up. You know, the 125 mana, he is squishy. He's got 3 range, which is pretty good. But overall, still a super strong champ. I mean, it's hard to argue against Brand. He is tier 4, and he is highly contested most of the time because he's part of Elementalists and Demons. So you're going to see him a ton, but that also means it's going to be relatively hard to get him. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, super strong champion, tons of AoE damage, great carry. You can load him up, you know, with your Death Cap or with your Ludens or your Morello or whatever and feel pretty good about it. So really, really good champion, although once again, very highly sought after. It's going to be difficult to get him to rank 2 in a lot of circumstances unless you're like really high rolling and like hard econing and like experiencing up really quickly. Okay. Next one is Cho, and a lot of people probably have Cho in tier 1. The thing about me with Cho is, like, I feel like his synergies aren't that great, but, like, if you're just looking at individually, like, hey, I just have 1 extra slot, like, which champion can I just throw in here to make this comp work? Cho is going to be one of the best. So you could definitely make an argument for Cho. He is tier 4. He is highly contested a lot of times. Now, his Brawler synergy is strong. Like, that's obviously really good. He fits in very well with Volibear. Rek'Sai is like still not amazing. She's better than she was as far as brawlers go. And then Warwick is like, all right, you know, but Cho is what really makes that comp pop a lot of times. And the thing about Cho is he just has an insane amount of base health. And especially at tier 2, he has 1,800 health. And then when you factor in like brawlers as well, if you get the full brawler bonus, it's going to be 2,500 base. So you could even put things like, oops, if you pull this back over here, you could even put things like Titanic Hydra on him, which is kind of weird, but that would allow him to get to his ult faster. And it, you know, 10% of his damage is 250 splash damage every time he autos, in addition to, or it's just to all adjacent enemies. I don't think it does his normal attack damage. It just does the splash damage. But either way, it opens up a couple of different itemization options that are kind of weird that you don't see on other champs. But yeah, he's the best frontliner, I think. You just put him on front. Now, if he gets burned out by demons, which is common these days, then that can be bad. But if he takes enough damage anyways, if he soaks a lot of damage, then I still think he can get his ult off through demons. And that ult is obviously so powerful. Everyone's seen it before. It hits like the whole map, knocks people up, stuns them for 2 seconds, and just does a pretty good amount of damage. So that Cho ult is very game breaking. It's very strong. He has a ton of health. He's got the synergy with Brawlers. Void doesn't matter as much unless you're specifically going Void Brawlers, in which case, you know, he's definitely an all-star, which I still think that comp can be really good. But yeah, he's going to be good. It takes him a while to charge up his mana, but usually he's on the front line, so he's going to be taking a lot of damage. So that's how you charge your mana, not the auto attacks. So yes, his auto attack speed sucks. It's 0.55. It's really low. It's rough. But if he is on the front line tanking that damage, then he will get it off pretty quickly. So yeah, you just have an extra, you know, your comp really pops at like 6 or something like that, but you're waiting on more synergy, like you're going Yordles or something. You don't have the Morgana yet, and you're like, you know what, I just need a tank to put on that front line. I'm just going to throw Cho up there. You know, he could definitely work. So I think he's one of the best standalone champions out there that you can just kind of slot in, just put into a comp, and you can feel pretty good about it. Okay, and yeah, I mean, you can just throw him in, like I said, with like a Volibear comp. Even if you're going like Glacials or something, you're not going like for the 4 Brawlers. You can still go 3 Brawlers and get the 300 health, which doesn't always matter late game, probably when you're getting Cho, but it can add up. Or just even with something like Wilds, if you just don't quite have your Aurelion Soul or something, and you just want someone else to help tank, and you want the Brawler bonus with Warwick or something. So like he's kind of flexible, not as flexible as the tier 1s, but he could definitely, like, his standalone impact in a fight is definitely on par with these. Just he just doesn't have as many like game breaking synergies, and he isn't as much of a carry as some of the other ones, but he's a very, very good role player in a lot of comps. Okay, Aatrox. So Aatrox is pretty good. A lot of people might consider Aatrox tier 1. Totally possible. I haven't played with him enough, honestly, to get a feel for it, but I'm definitely starting to respect him more. I've been getting my butt kicked by this guy more. He does a lot of damage. That's the thing. It's like his Darkened Blade at tier 2 does 700 damage per person that you hit. Now, I don't know how many hexes this hits for, but it feels like it's at least 1 hex in all directions is what it seems like. So he's usually hitting 1, sometimes 2 people with this. Maybe even 3, so he does tear up a lot of other melee comps. His health at tier 2 is pretty good at 1350. Now, his mana is only 75, so he doesn't have Sorcerer or anything like that to charge it up faster, but if he is taking damage, he can usually get this off faster. And you can put something like a Gunblade on him, and whenever he ults, he's going to heal back for, like, a ton of the damage that he dealt, so that would allow him to tank a lot of damage, then deal a lot of damage and heal back. So he does have some comps that or some like ways that you can items you can put on him to make him really strong. So I think that Gunblade that I'm looking at over here, I should just put this, I'm not sure if I can move it over here. There we go. Let's just put that over there. That'll be easier. So like Gunblade is kind of a weird item you don't put on a lot of people. But, you know, his ult does a lot of ability power, and it does give him attack damage. So if you have a needlessly large rod and a BF sword, it could be good. So, yeah, can be good. I've seen him hard carry. Obviously, he has 1 really good trait and 1 okay trait. So, Demon, very relevant. He's a great demon to slot in at tier 3 to give you potentially that 4-piece bonus. If you start off early with, like, Elise, Varus, if you're trying to go demons, and you get, like, Morg, Aatrox, he can give you the 4 demon. Decent tank, not insane. He does have 25 armor, kind of low attack speed, so he's good. I mean, he's good. I still think that these top 5 champions are a little bit better, but I think he's definitely top 10. And, like, the Blade Master trait is definitely relevant as well. You know, most likely that's going to be with, like I said, the Gunslinger comp, but it can work with, like, Draven. I guess you would do something like Aatrox, Draven, maybe Shen, and Shen would be like your assassin, and he could help you frontline with the demons also. So, I mean, that could be pretty good. Aatrox, Shen, frontline, Draven on the back line, and then just surround him with a bunch of demons. Maybe that's the way to go. I think everyone's still trying to figure out, like, everyone knows demons are strong, but it's like, what's the optimal build? I mean, other than just throwing a bunch of OP stuff together, you know, like Morgana, Varus, Brand, Aatrox, and then just hoping for the best. I'm still trying to figure out, like, the best progression paths and, like, where to put the items and stuff, but I think he's very good. He's very solid. So Blade Master's there, so you can throw him in with Gunslingers. Although with Gunslingers, usually you go Shin and then Draven. So you have Gangplank, Shin, and then Draven. Or like Yasuo with some of these comps as well. But Yasuo, you can't count on him. He's tier 5. But so I think like definitely in Demons, you're obviously going to run him. Maybe when with like a Blade Master comp with Gunslingers, or if you go in full-on Blade Masters. So a little more situational. Pretty much you're only going to see him in Demons, but he can be in most circumstances. But he can be very, very strong in that comp with the right items. But his items that he wants are a little bit different than some of the other ones. So it's nice to sort of sink those items in there, those weird items like Gunblade that other champs may not want. But at the same time, he may not scale as well as some of the other champs with some of the items. But yeah, overall, strong champ. Okay, Akali is another one. Now, Akali specifically got nerfed a couple of times here, but I think she can still be really good. She did lose, I think, what was it, like 0.5 attack speed. Now, the assassin trait, the thing is, like, you don't need the assassin trait for Akali to be good. You can just kind of slot her into almost any comp, and she's still going to do a ton of damage. So, I think... Yeah, crit stacks multiplicatively and not additively, but they didn't nerf the exact crit numbers, I don't believe. I don't have the patch notes pulled up, but I think that's only relevant if you have the assassin trait. If you're just a standalone person like Akali, I don't think that's going to matter. Like, I think she still does a ton of damage. Oh, she got her health nerfed too. I think she lost either 50 or 100 health, so she definitely can die faster, but... She does a ton of damage on that backline. If she doesn't get deleted immediately, she will destroy people. Now, 375 doesn't look like a lot, but you got to remember that can crit. So that's not going to be as good if you don't have the assassins for the crit bonus, but it can still crit. And the thing is, it's only 25 mana, so it's up a lot, especially if you throw something like an Archangel's on her or a Luden's. She can put out a ton of damage. So I still think she's worth considering at tier 2. She might be tier 1 still. I just feel like Assassins got nerfed pretty hard, and so, like, her main build with the Ninja Assassins build has been nerfed. I still think that, like, Brawler Assassins can be pretty good, like Void Brawler Assassins. It still has potential, the build that I was using a lot last patch. So, we'll see. She's just, like I said, she's a ninja. A lot of the ninjas that are good, especially, like, Kennen, Akali... maybe Shen. Like, they're always going to be pretty relevant that you can just kind of slot in if you just need one extra champ just to fill in, because they get the 40% extra attack damage because of the standalone ninja trait. So I still think she deserves some respect in there, although maybe she's not as strong as before. But she did a lot of damage before, even before I had the ninja buff going, or even while she was tier 1. Like, at tier 1, she was outperforming, like, tier 2 Kha'Zix and tier 2 Evelynn in that comp with ninja. So that should tell you something. Like a bronze champion outperforming a silver champ in those comps. So she does a lot more damage than it at first appears if you haven't played against her or haven't used her before. And she's very, very good with any sort of mana plus AP item. You know, like Archangels, I guess it's just a ton of mana. But also with Ludens. And keep in mind with Archangels, it used to not be that great of an item on her because she would blow her ult immediately before she ran over there because she'd already have 25 mana. But now you wait until you're in range of somebody. She won't use her ult unless she's in range. So now she jumps back there and immediately ults. And then it's basically like she'll auto attack and then ult again. So it's pretty much like every second or two she's going to be ulting. So she just ults a lot on that backline. I think there's a cooldown on the ult, an internal cooldown. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it's 1 or 2 seconds. So it's not like you just chain ult if you have Archangels over and over and over again, like ult. If you have like multiple Archangels, that would just like instantly kill the team. So there has to be like a cooldown on it. So there is a cooldown, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. But it's like 1 or 2 seconds. But basically, she's ulting a lot if you put a mana item on her. Okay, let's talk about Varus. Okay, so Varus can be a super powerful like hard carry champ. Once again, totally possible, just like these champs here. If I was doing, like, tier 1 was top 10 champions, he would definitely make the cut. It's just, I make it 5, but he's still going to be really strong. So, what's up with Varus? Why is he so strong? Well, he does a surprising amount of damage with his ult for a tier 2 champ. It's pretty disgusting. So, like, so it's very easy to get him to silver rank, and he does 600 damage with his ult. Like, that's more than most tier 3 champs. Like, Morgana does a hell of a lot of damage, and she does 750, and he's doing 600. No, that's per champion hit. So if you hit 2 champions, that's the same damage as a brand ult. Keep that in mind. But it only requires 75 mana. Now, he's not, he's not a sorcerer or anything like that, so he's not going to be casting this for as long, and he has to hold and channel this for 1.5 seconds, but it still hits like a truck. It does a ton of damage. He has really high attack speed as well. Like 0.7 is very high for a tier 2 champion that has 4 range as well. So he can basically shoot almost the whole map, like half the map. So he's really, really strong for a tier 2 champion. Now, Ranger's not always relevant, but you can get like Vayne early and get some Rangers going if you want to. You can throw Ashe in later, so he slots in pretty easily into any kind of Glacial comp. It's just like, you just throw him in there. Like Glacial Elementalist that I really like to run, you can slot in an or like a Varus later on. Around like, I think level 7 or so, you can slot in a Varus. So, pretty helpful there, but then of course his marquee setup is going to be with demons. He's one of the early demons you can acquire. You can throw him in with like, Elise, Aatrox, and Morgana early. Or you can just do like 2 demon with, like Morgana and Aatrox early, and then have some kind of tank line, either knights or brawlers or something. So very good champion, long range, does a ton of damage on his ult, like probably way too much damage, honestly, for a tier 2 champ. And then obviously if you get him to tier 3, 800 damage on everybody with just one shot, which it's possible to get him to gold rank because he's really... Only demons take him typically. Like, Rangers aren't a very popular comp to go for the 4 Rangers, although you see it from time to time. And he's only ranked 2, so it's possible to get him to gold. It's not super likely, but it's totally possible. And if you did get him there, 800 damage per hit. It's pretty nutty. Okay. So, very strong, just good role player champ. You can load him up with carry items. He does have very high attack speed. So, and he does have a really good ult when you channel his ult all the way up. So you can feel good about putting, rapid fire cannon or just any sort of like hard carry item. I mean, I guess you could even put AP on him because he does a lot of damage. So, I mean, in theory, I suppose you could put things like, like Ludens or, any sort of like rod item could be pretty decent on him. So, got a lot of options there, a lot of versatility. So, strong champ. Once again, the reason that he's not as high is just because he's not as flexible as some of these other champs. Because it's really, you're only going to see him in demons or maybe Glacial Elementalist with a splash. But that comp is not, like, super popular right now. But he can definitely be very good. Okay, Tristana's the other one. And Tristana's up this high just simply because she's in a lot of the top comps. She's in Gunslingers and she's in Yordles. And she's a pretty good early tier unit. And she can serve as your hard carry if you load her up with items, particularly with the Gunslingers. She's the person that you load up with the on-hit items because she has 4 range. Like, you can put them on Lucian as well, or you could put them on, Graves. They all do on-hit really well. But just because she has such long range and she has the highest potential to get multiple hits. Oh, she's making noise. Is she saying mine? Oh, no. But yeah, anyways, with Gunslinger, she has the highest potential to be able to hit multiple targets and apply Cursed Blade or Hush or Disarm or whatever to the whole team. So she's a very strong carry if you get her together. And then once again, she goes in Yordles and Gunslingers. I was honestly thinking about putting her in tier 1. On the tier list, and I think you could definitely make an argument for that because it's like, okay, she's in 2 of the best top comps. She is often used as a carry in Gunslingers. You can carry her in Yordles, but not usually because you don't have the on-hit synergy as much. So usually the carry in Yordles, I think, is going to be, probably like a Kennen, or if you go Elementalist, you throw Bran in there. But she's still functional. She's still good in that comp. So, yeah, I mean, she's in a lot of the early game comps. You can pick her early and feel good about it, leveling her up because she can go in a couple of different comps. Does okay damage for an early game champ. I mean, 150 damage, magic damage, AoE that can hit multiple targets. It's only 50 mana. Is pretty good. And then, of course, you know, like I said, she has the Yordle trait and the Gunslinger trait. So in the Yordle comp, she is going to be a bit more resistant to assassins. Actually, a lot more resistant to assassins than most other like ranged 80 carries because she's going to have 60% dodge. So she's good. I mean, once again, totally could be in a top tier comp. They did nerf her this patch to take her down to 0.65 attack speed instead of 0.7. So she doesn't scale as well with the attack speed items, but it's still pretty good. It's still serviceable. So, you know, tier 2 could be as high as tier 1. I think she's definitely a strong champ. Warwick is another one. Now, this is kind of like a role player champ, but he plays a role in a lot of different comps. So that's why, and he's pretty good early. So usually you can get him with a wild early, and that's pretty much going to give him 50% extra attack speed. So, you know, he basically has a 0.9 attack speed early on. So that's really good in the long fights. And the early fights are going long, right? It's just like, you know, 4 champions just beating on each other for a long time. So he has time to stack up that wild bonus. And then the ult, you know, CCs for 3 seconds, does pretty decent damage for 150, and also heals you, I think, for the 150 as well. So not an amazing ult. It's okay. You know, it requires 150 mana. He's usually going to get 1 off in a lot of fights. He has high base health at 60. You can also get him with brawlers early. That extra 300 health is very relevant. So if you put him in with like Rek'Sai, that's a pretty intimidating front line early. So it allows you to win streak early because you're going to have the health of like a rank 2 champion off of your rank 1 champion. And if you get him to rank 2, you know, he's going to have even higher health. So I think he's just a good solid champ. He's got 30 armor as well. And like I say, he's just very versatile, right? You can put him in brawler comps, and brawlers can go in a bunch of different directions. You can do the Void Brawler Assassins that I've mentioned. You can do Brawler Elementalists, which are popular. Then he can also go in like a wild comp. So, you know, it's pretty much just wild dragons right now. But I think there's a potential to do like wild elementalists. Could potentially be pretty good. You know, that would require a few more champions, but if you can't get to the Gnar, I guess you could throw in Rengar and just do like Wild Elementalist and then like a Kennen brand, you know, you Kennen brand whatever, Lysandra package. So there's just a lot of ways to slot him in there. Even with something like the like Glacial Elementalist, you can just throw him in there with like your Volibear just to get a little bit of extra brawler bonus in the mid game. So you can just kind of hold a lot of comps together early with brawlers if you need to, and then you can get rid of him later, or you can just keep him with the comp just to make it work to get the 4 brawler bonus or the 4 wild bonus. So he's just almost the definition of like strong early game, good versatile glue type of champion that holds it all together. Later on, so pretty good. He's not going to hard carry you in a lot of games, but you're going to see him, I think, in a lot of different comps, and I think he'll be pretty effective. Okay, Lulu, how are we looking on time here? Got to speed it up. We got to make sure this is about an hour. Okay, Lulu is still really strong. Now, Lulu did get several buffs, and Lulu actually can function as a carry in a couple of different comps. So, I mean, it's totally possible Lulu should be higher up in tier 2. I wouldn't quite put her in tier 1, but she's damn strong right now. So she's Yordle and Sorcerer. And Yordle, once again, we've talked about several times, one of the top tier comps. She's an early one you can get a hold of. And she's really good with champions that have like nice defensive stats. So she's very good early if you have to put her in with like Garen and Darius or something, like a Knights package while you wait on the rest of your comp, or like with Poppy early, you know, if you want to go like Lulu, Lulu, Tristana, Poppy, and then throw a Garen in there for Knights plus Yordles on Poppy. She can help keep Poppy up. So she's really, really important for that comp because she gives them all a bunch of health, because there aren't a lot of tanks outside of Poppy unless you splash for something else until you get Gnar online. So just really, really good. So as I talk about all the time in League as well, like health scales really well with other defensive steroids. Like if you have the 60% dodge on Yordles, that health that you give, the 475 health to 2 different targets is 950 health. That means that they're going to have to deal a ton of extra damage to get through that 60% dodge. So let's say that someone did was going to do 2,000 or whatever auto attack damage, right? That would get reduced by 50% or by 60% rather for the Yordles, which I think is 800, but I'm not sure offhand. 0.6 times 2,000. Or no, they would only, it would dodge 0.6, and so they would only do 0.4. There we go. Yeah, 800. So I was right. So that means that basically, like, it looks like your health, when you look at her ult, when you have the Yordle, all the Yordles assembled, you look at her health that she's healing, it's like, oh, you know, if she's ranked 2, she's only going to be healing 475 health. It's like, okay, but that's 2 targets, so that's 975. And then with the Yordle dodge bonus, that means it's going to take over 2,000 damage now to cancel out the healing that she just did. So it's like she's canceling 2,000 damage they're doing. And that doesn't even include armor or magic resist or whatever that you have on those champions. So just like in League of Legends, this is why enchanters always have a really high win rate, is because healing and shielding is OP. Because of how it stacks with armor and how it stacks with other damage mitigation modifiers like the dodge. So that's part of what makes her very, very strong in that comp, is just because it's so hard to kill anything through Lulu, especially Poppy, because Poppy is usually going to have like at least one armor item stacked on her. So yeah, very, very strong champion in that comp. You can hyper carry with Lulu because they're just never going to be able to kill you. I think I got first or second place in a comp where I had a gold star Lulu, and I put like 2 Shojins and a rapid fire on her, and they just never could kill anyone on my team. Just hanging out on the back line, just spamming auto attacks, and just, if she's tier 3, then she heals 3 people for 650, which is just ludicrous. I mean, imagine trying to erase that 1850 health using the numbers that I just talked about. I mean, it's going to take like 4,000, 4,500 damage or something like that to cancel out what she just did one time. You know, and she's going to get off multiple in a fight if you stack her with items. So she definitely can be a hard carry in some of these comps if you get a lot of her early. Another thing is she slots in really well with a lot of like sorcerer comps. So most notably Wilds is historically where she's been used. So you think about you'll have Ahri, usually you have Aurelion Sol, and then you have Lulu. And Lulu's really good in that comp, once again, because the healing is not only sort of good stalling tactics, but it allows your shapeshifters to transform. So when you're healing up that Shyvana on the front line and the Gnar or whatever, they're taking a bunch of damage, which is giving them mana, but the problem is they could die before they transform. But if Lulu keeps them up, then they get to transform, they get the healing off of the shapeshifter bonus, and then they go to work. I mean, obviously, everyone knows once Shyvana and Gnar transform, they mean business. They're really strong. So Lulu just allows them to tank, get that mana from tanking, and then stay alive at the same time. So she's very, very good with that comp. Good in the Yordle comp, obviously. You don't see her outside of those two. Those are 2 top-tier comps, but anything that's going to splash sorcerers, maybe you could do it. I'm trying to think of like other weird comps like her, plus like maybe Morgana in a demon comp. If you get like, I don't know what else you would put in there, a Karthus or something. I don't know. You're going to have to get a little creative to put her in other comps. But she's pretty decent standalone, too. I mean, just having the healing with the Sorcerer trait where you stack up your mana twice as fast makes her so good with Shojin. You know, she does have the 150 mana, but remember, it's really like 75 mana that she gains off of autos just because of the Sorcerer buff. So she fits into a lot of stuff, I think. She can be a very strong. Anything that's going to have like a 3 Sorcerer package, Lulu, you should very, very highly consider putting her in. She's easy to get. She's powerful. She's underestimated. A lot of people don't pick her up. Very good. Okay, last couple of champions here. Aurelion Sol, I think, is making a comeback just in the last minute that we have here. I mean, people are probably very familiar with Sol from back in the day. It's pretty much just for the Wild Dragons comp. I mean, once again, if you have, like, if you want to do a Sorcerer package with Lulu, I mean, you could throw Sol in with, like, Demons maybe. Like, Sol, you'd have Morgana, and then Lulu. I'd probably only do that if you think you're not going to be able to get the Demon bonus or whatever, or the Elementalist bonus. Like, everyone's just taking all of your brands or taking all of the Lissandras or Kennens or whatever. But he's really good. I mean, he does a lot of damage when he gets to rank 2, 450 in a line that can hit everybody. That's less than Varus. That's less than Morg. It's less than a lot of champs, which is why he's down lower. But it has a pretty wide hitbox, and it hits the whole map. So, and he's immune to dragons. and he's immune to magic, which is really relevant against things like Kennen, and he makes Shyvana immune to magic, which is really relevant against things like Kennen and other things that are going to hit the backline. So he's probably only going to be in Wild Dragons, but you might be able to splash him in other comps. He's still going to be pretty good. Then finally, Lucian deserves a spot. He's really good with gunslingers, does a ton of damage. You can put a lot of on-hit on him early on. You can even throw things like Ludens or Archangels on him and have him be effective, but overall going to be pretty good. That's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Come check me out on Twitch, and I'll see you next time.